Is adult clergy essay on the rise, or people are just not reporting now, or we're just finding out about it because of social media and of how media houses are reporting it now as opposed to before? Yesterday, somebody sent me an article that was published in the BBC about ex-priest that is being charged with indecent assault of, I think, 17 women. This is the article that was published in by the BBC, of Christopher Bryan, the former priest who was leader of an evangelical movement, the 9 o'clock service, leaving at Inner London Crown Court. That's a picture of him leaving there. And I want to ask the question: is adult clergy essay on the rise, or has it been happening a long time and we're just learning about it now? And what are the things that we can do? What are the steps that we need to take? How can we kind of minimize vulnerabilities so that this thing that is on the rise, or that we're learning more about now, something can be done about it? What can the church do to their leaders that will minimize the risk of adult clergy essay? Welcome to my channel. My name is Joanna Danielle. I am a trauma-informed counselor and the founder of Wounds to Scars. We work with adult survivors of childhood trauma and women who experience abuse. We talk on domestic abuse, SA. We do training and courses, and we provide groups that provide a safe place for people who experience trauma to heal. So this conversation, people usually sends me things that is happening in the church, not just any church, in Christian settings around SA or domestic abuse. And when this article came, it really came before I had another conversation around essay of an adult, and this conversation about grooming and what does it look like. And what I want you to know is, if you are an adult that had, I'm going to say, a relationship with somebody in leadership, chances are there were grooming involved sometimes. Not everybody's making a decision to have a relationship with somebody in leadership. Now, this, this gentleman, Christopher Bryan, he had several women were assaulted by him. Several women were molested by him, allegedly, according to the article. And sometimes what we're finding is that it's never one person. It's hardly ever one person that this person in leadership would try to single out to have an illicit kind of, well, I'm not going to say even that it's not an affair, it's abuse. When you're in leadership, it's really important to not have relationship with the people that you're leading, because it makes me wonder how many people are making decisions about a relationship. Or is it because you are the leader and people feel like they can't say no, and the way that the relationship develops? So people in leadership really need to think hard about what they're doing. And how does the church respond when somebody comes forward with an allegation of essay, an allegation of being groomed? Sometimes it's really difficult for an adult to accept that this is what it was, because sometimes adults feel that they can't be groomed. We think, grooming only happens to children. Adults can be groomed too, because what we know about perpetrators is that they will know your vulnerabilities and they will use that as a means to prey on your vulnerabilities. Groomers follow a specific agenda, but you won't know that that's what's happening. You won't know that the invitations to lunch, you won't know that the invitations to let me be your confidant, you won't know that the invitations to tell me about it are the fact that they have an agenda. You won't know that, and you'll think that you're developing this relationship. You might feel really special that you've been singled out by leadership, or you might feel that, oh wow, they are solving my problems, or they're listening to me and I can really talk to this person. You might feel special about that, but they have a specific agenda, right? That's one thing that they're going after. And everything that they do is building up to this thing, right? So it's really important to know that. Some of the things to look out for is to not, your boundaries will be completely disrespected and disregarded. And initially, nobody comes in and say, I'm not going to I'm not going to respect your boundaries. They don't really do it that way. But they will subtly and sometimes even jovially, they'll laugh about, say, oh, that's so silly. What do you mean I can't call you at 10 o'clock? How do you mean I can't come around at 11? I'm coming to spend time with you. You're my friend. I just want a cup of tea. And you might feel unable to push back on that, you might feel unable to push back on that. And so your boundaries get eroded, your boundaries get disrespected, your boundaries get disregarded, and you do not know that that's what's happening. If this has happened to you, you might sit in a lot of shame saying, well, how did this happen? I'm an adult. I should have known better. And there'll be a lot of shame and self-blame that will come. And what I say to women who have had this experience is, I let us look at what were the vulnerabilities. Not that it's your fault. It's not your fault. Somebody's made a decision, and now you're sitting with the aftermath of this thing that has happened, and you're having to heal from a vicious attack, really. And you're saying, well, how could this happen to me? I was an adult. You may have thought you were in a relationship when you find out that when you disclose there are 5 other people, 6 other people, 3 other people, 10 in Christopher Bryan's case, 17 other people. You may find that there are other people that have had the same experience as you. And that might leave you with a lot of shame and anger and bitterness. And one of the things that I know victims of SA usually have is a lot of anger, a lot of self-blame, a lot of bitterness, self-blame. Like, how could I not see this? How could this have happened to me? And, as I said, when you're starting to heal, it's really important that you don't sit with the how could this have happened to me for too long, because that will really sink you into depressive moods and, increase anxiety, and that sense of shame and self-blame can be really crippling. So it's really important to find somebody who understands this, to walk with you through that journey, so that you can put it into context. You can fix the story that you have around the incident that have happened, and this relationship that you thought you were in that was not a relationship, that was inappropriate, that somebody had specifically targeted you and do the things that they did, that you can find someone who understands this to work through this with you. Some people who are dealing with adult clergy SA may lose their church. You may lose your church family, because one thing we know is that the church usually supports the victim, not the victim, the perpetrator rather, especially somebody in leadership that is well liked. Very rarely have I met a church that acts really fast in disfellowshipping or sanctioning or putting things in place to protect victims. It's a really slow process, and while that slow process is going on and people are getting wind of it, people choose a side, and oftentimes they choose the side of the perpetrator. They're in leadership, maybe they're very good preachers, they're well liked, they're well known. All of those things adds to whether or not people will believe you. Some people choose to not believe. Okay. And so because this might be deeply wounding for you, that this is your story and people do not believe you, and you might have to leave a church community and family that you have loved and you felt settled. Don't allow that to stop you from, don't let it leave God. Don't leave God. Even if that church does not have the capacity, in that they don't have the empathy that will be required to love you through a painful season in your life, don't allow that to let you to leave God. They have a deficiency, not you and not God. And so there are places that you might go that will be able to love you. And, the work that Wounds to Scars do is to continually to work with churches, continue to work with leadership, to teach them how to respond to these kind of situations, how to deal with victims of adult clergy SA, how to manage the conversation, how to use language that are not harmful, so that people are not you're not creating a second wound for people. So if this is your story, just know that you're not to be blamed. It doesn't matter the age that you were when this happened. You are not to be blamed. This person had an agenda and they executed the agenda. Unfortunately, you were a victim to that agenda. If you're supporting someone, you're listening, you are in leadership, and you're having to listen to these stories about this leader that has done this, it's really important. There's some key things that you need to know. There's some key things that you need to know. So you might say it's not your fault, we don't blame you, but in the same token, your language is going to be really important. We're teaching some of the nuances of that language in our Safe Relationship Guide training that starts on the 22nd of September until the 13th of October. It's going to be over 4 Mondays from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. UK time, and we're teaching clergy and pastors and leaders and people who want to support victims some of the language that is how to reduce harm, because what I'm finding is that language is causing harm. And so let us teach you the language to use to reduce harm. So there's this, lots of churches have a safeguarding policy. This is how to execute the safeguarding policy in a way that you're honoring the victim stories, in a way that victims are seen and heard and held, in a way that victims know that they have a place and a home, and that they're believed. Sometimes administrators can be taken up with the task of administrating, the task of booking a meeting and taking a statement and calling the police and putting firing their colleague. They might be taken up with the fact that I've worked with this colleague for so many years and we've had lunch together. We know their family. They know my family. They have my secrets. I have theirs. They might be caught up within those administrative tasks. And when we're in that place, it's really very difficult to separate that from the care and concern that a victim needs. And so sometimes the stories that we're hearing is that victims are being harmed in that whole administrative process. So if you would like some help on that, Wounds to Scars, we got you. We are training the Safe Relationship Guide on the 22nd of September. We'll be able to help your church. And if you're a church that wants to send several leaders, my email will be below this video, and we can have a conversation about how to, give you a special deal so that your leadership team can come. If you are somebody that is healing, there are spaces and places that are safe enough for you to come and to start to do that work of healing, where you can just sit down, where you can just rest, where you can just start to unpack, where you can start to make sense of, where a space where there's no shame, there's no blame, a space where your guilt will be held, and a space where grace is available. So I'm putting the details, our email below this video. Send us a message and we'll send you the details of how to apply to be in one of our groups. Thank you for joining this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and share this video with those who you think will benefit.